thought this book was about me. Don't they know my time on Earth is running out? I've got to get to Camp Half-Blood and face the last surviving members of the Triumvirate. And somehow, if I manage to survive that, I have to face my nemesis Python. Why, Father, are you torturing me so?
Hey everybody, it's Rick Riordan. We're here with Brookline Booksmith and the Wilbur Theater. I hope you guys enjoy the evening. Yay, welcome everybody. I am so happy to be here for the 8-day virtual tour for the Tower of Nero. We are going all around the US and we're not even leaving our houses, but we're gonna have a lot of fun. And we've got special guest appearances at every event, different guest stars, and I'll tell you about that in a second. So the Tower of Nero, where are we going? We are virtually visiting Brookline Booksmith in my hometown of Boston. We're going to New York City for Books of Wonder, Politics and Prose in DC, Little Shop of Stories in Decatur, Georgia, Blue Willow Bookshop in Houston, Barnes and Noble, Kepler's in Menlo Park, California, and Books A Million. Whew, I'm tired just thinking about it. Let's get started. So what's the book about? The Tower of Nero features our old friend Apollo, god of music, god of poetry, god of medicine, god of archery, and all around just super duper dude. Unfortunately, as you may know, if you've been following the series, Apollo is not exactly Apollo these days. No, Apollo is Lester Papadopoulos. Poor teenage Lester, who has really no skills, no redeeming features at all, and he's sent down to Earth by his father Zeus. He is grounded and forced to become a mortal kid and somehow find his way back to earning his godhood on Mount Olympus. Well, so how's he doing with this quest? I mean, I guess he's made some progress over the last 4 books. He's gone all over the place. He's seen a lot of stuff, but unfortunately, he's still got a big couple of enemies that he's got to fight, and he's got to really determine what is it going to take to be Apollo again. And when he does, if he does turn into Apollo again, what is that even going to look like? Here's a look at all the places we have been on this amazing Lester farewell tour. Anyway, he hopes it's a farewell tour to the mortal world. We started, as you might remember, back in the Hidden Oracle in Manhattan. That's where he fell to Earth, went to Percy Jackson's house for help. Percy was really totally psyched to be asked to do yet another quest. But we got him to Camp Half-Blood, and then we sent him on his way. From there, Lester went to Indianapolis, where he met some friends at the way station. He went down to Palm Springs and then Santa Monica. Oh, some bad stuff happened in Santa Monica. I can't talk about it. But then from there, he went to Camp Jupiter in the Bay Area. And now he's heading back to the East Coast to face one final great ordeal. So, what do you have to look forward to? Well, you're going to see Meg McCaffrey again, that's for sure. Our friend Meg, as you know, is the daughter of Demeter. She is really great with fruit, vegetables, flowering vines, and she's not too shabby dual-wielding scimitars either. So it's a good thing that Lester / Apollo has her on his side. However, there's another couple that is going to be pretty big in this book, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you will be happy to hear that Will and Nico, campers extraordinaire at Camp Half-Blood, are back, and they have a big role to play in this. Now, I love this artwork. This is Viria artwork. I'm not sure why it's like Nico looks like he's a foot shorter than Will. I don't think that's actually accurate, but that's okay. That's okay. They look great. And Rachel Elizabeth Dare, our friend, the Oracle of Delphi. Now, Rachel hasn't been able to do many prophecies because Python, the great serpent, has taken over Delphi itself. So she's been kind of cut off from the future. Is she going to get back her ability? That depends on Apollo. So we'll see what happens, but Rachel is along for this adventure and she's got a big part to play. Is she going to hit anybody with her blue plastic hairbrush? Wait and see. So what's the quest? Well, as you know, it's already cost us quite a bit. Jason Grace, spoiler alert, yeah, I can't even make myself say it, but we said goodbye to a dear friend in the trials of Apollo, and it really, really hurt. Nevertheless, this is sometimes what happens. Dare I say, it's usually what happens when you're a demigod. Just like Percy Jackson warned you in The Lightning Thief on page 1, most of the time, you end up dying in painful, nasty ways. I wish that wasn't true, but we're going to make it count, though. Jason, my man, to you. Here are some of the many things that have tried to kill Lester so far in the trials of Apollo. You would think that after a while, I'd run out of Greek monsters to talk about, but that never seems to be the case. There's so much in Greek mythology that the more you get into it, the more you find. So see, these are just some of the wild, wacky kind of things that we've already faced. We've got Pandos. Oh, that's another painful memory. Our poor Pandos friend. We've got the troglodytes. Yeah, I love the troglodytes. You're going to meet them in this book. And all of the rest, they're coming your way in the Tower of Nero. And of course, Nero himself is coming your way. Oh, this guy. I mean, you thought Caligula was bad. You thought Commodus was vain and narcissistic. Take both of them and blend them together and multiply that nastiness by 10, and you've got Nero. This guy, I don't even know. And he's Meg McCaffrey's sort of stepfather too. So that makes things really complicated. He's this sort of emotionally abusive foster father to her. And Meg has been dealing with this for her whole life. Now she's got to go back after all her adventures with Lester and try to make sense out of who she is. What does it mean to be in a family? And can she face this horrible, horrible father figure? Where is she going to land in this? Whose side is she on? That is another thing that remains to be seen in book 5. I wish I could tell you that Nero is the only big bad that you're going to have to see in the Tower of Nero. Unfortunately, there's another big bad that Apollo will have to face, his old arch nemesis, Python. Now, Python is a lot more than just a big snake. He was the original owner of the caverns of Delphi. He has now taken them back, and Apollo will have to fight him. Now, Apollo has defeated Python before. That's how he got Delphi. The only thing was, the first time, Apollo was an actual god with like powers and stuff. Now he's Lester Papadopoulos with not so much of the powers. Is he going to be able to face his old enemy and somehow defeat him and take back Delphi? He's always known through the trials of Apollo, this is the biggest, baddest, most difficult challenge he's going to have to face. And this is the book where we find out, does Lester have what it takes? Wow, 5 books in the trials of Apollo. It is hard to believe that I've been telling this many stories for this many years about a god who, at the beginning anyway, really wasn't a very sympathetic character. I mean, let's be honest, Apollo, he's kind of full of himself. He really thought he was hot stuff. No pun intended, but yeah, he does drive the sun. So as he's gone through the series, I've really started to feel some more sympathy for him. He's been through a lot. I think being human has taught him a lot. He's learned what it is to lose someone. He's learned what it is to be really faithful and loyal to your friends. Not everything comes easy when you're a demigod or when you're a human. And Apollo, I think, has a new appreciation for that. The question still is, has he learned enough from all the demigods that he's met? All of these heroes we know from Percy Jackson's world. Has he really learned how to be a hero? Because it takes a lot more than just power and immortality to really rise and be like Percy Jackson or one of the other demigod heroes. Now, turning to another topic, I do have some news for you. If you haven't heard yet, it's pretty cool and exciting stuff. The background on this, as you may know, the Percy Jackson series was adapted into 2 movies. This was, what, 10 years ago now. I was not really involved in those. I tried to sort of give my 2 cents, and I read the scripts and gave some notes, like lots and lots of notes. But it became pretty clear pretty early that they were interested in doing their own thing. And it was not going to be what I would consider a faithful adaptation. So after I read the scripts, I just kind of sat back and I said, look, guys, if this is the way it's going, I'm out. I really can't do this. And really, that was my only option. I mean, I didn't have any control back then. I had no power as an author. Basically, the studio was calling all the shots. And that's the way it is really most of the time, mostly when an author adapts a book. So we sat with that for years and years. There wasn't much we could do. And then the industry kind of got a shake-up. Fox, who had the Percy Jackson rights, got bought by Disney. Disney is my publisher. And I started thinking, this is interesting. I wonder if we can sort of shake things up, shake things loose. So a year ago, I started going out to Hollywood in person and having meetings. And boy, did we have a lot of meetings. I talked to everybody. I tried to explain what had happened the first time around, why my readers didn't like it, why I couldn't let that happen again, why I really wanted to make a better adaptation. But after much, much hard work, we finally got an agreement that we are going to produce not more movies, but a TV show based on Percy Jackson. This is going to be done to stream on Disney Plus, which was my idea. I liked this idea. I said, yes, this is the way to do it. We're going to take the 5 books of Percy Jackson. We're going to turn each book into 1 season. That will give us time to really do it right and make each episode the best it can possibly be. So where are we now? We have a team together. I am on that team. I'm not the only voice, but Becky, my wife, and I, who have always been a team behind the books, she's always my best advisor. We are on board. We're part of the process. We have a say. We're at the table, and we can say, look, guys, this is not what Percy would do, or this is not like it is in the book. It's too much of a change. Now, obviously, some things are going to have to change. Movies and TV, they're just not the same as books. You have to show some things a little bit differently. And you can't just go page by page and scene by scene. You do have to have a little bit of flexibility. Also, we kind of want to make it fresh for people that have never read the books and people that have read the books 20 times. If you think you know the story, there still needs to be something new and interesting for you, a reason for you to watch this adaptation. I think we're on the right track. Keep your fingers crossed, still early days, but I'm really excited that we finally seem to be having something in process for you guys. So I will keep you updated on that, but right now I feel real good about it. Oh yeah, and what else have I been doing in my spare time when I haven't been writing novels and I haven't been making trips out to Hollywood and working on the TV show? I've also been getting a master's degree in Gaelic literature at the University College Cork in Ireland. Now, I did this all online. Why would I do this? For one thing, I've always loved mythology, but the one sort of mythology I felt like I could speak to, and I haven't yet, is Celtic mythology, in particular Irish mythology. That's my ancestry. In fact, my ancestors came from Cork City, and they lived like right down the street from this college. That's the main building of UCC. So I thought it was a cool idea to get a degree from that university in Gaelic literature. So I started learning Irish. I started reading the ancient manuscripts of Irish mythology, what we have of it anyway, the folk tales, everything that I could get my hands on. Some of this I knew, but I can tell you now I know it a lot better. I finished my thesis. It's on the god Lugh, and that was a lot of fun. But now I really feel like I'm in a place where I can speak to Irish mythology. And yes, absolutely, the end goal of this is to use that material in children's books, the way I have with Greek and Roman mythology, the way I have with Egyptian and Norse mythology. I feel really close to Irish mythology. I am not Irish myself, but it is my ancestral heritage. I'm not going to tell it the same way an Irish author would. There are many great Irish authors that are doing that. But I do think I have something to contribute. And it's been a lot of fun so far to get into that. But of course, my favorite thing to talk about is not my books, but it's the imprint Rick Riordan presents. This has been incredibly fun for me to do. I have gotten so much satisfaction because I don't get the credit for this. I don't get the money for this. This is all about me getting to book talk other fantastic authors and promoting their books. And if you haven't heard where Rick Riordan Presents came from, basically a few years back, I was talking to my editor at Disney, and she said, Rick, would you ever be interested in the idea of doing your own imprint? An imprint is kind of a subdivision, a brand under the Disney publishing umbrella. And so I thought, you know, I've always gotten questions like, Rick, would you do a book on Chinese mythology, or would you do Aztec mythology or West African mythology? And all of these great cultural stories are fantastic, but they're not my background and they're not something I'm an expert at. So I thought to myself, wouldn't it be better if I could, rather than doing those stories myself, find authors from those backgrounds, marginalized groups that know these stories, that grew up with these stories and could tell them from the inside with a real understanding and depth that I can't master. So we started looking for own voices authors to tell these stories in the same kind of way that I do with Percy Jackson. So I don't tell them what to write. They don't like model it after Percy Jackson, but we do look for things that are page turners, that have a good sense of humor, that deal with folklore or mythology in some way, and that I think my readers will like. So with each of these books, with all of these authors, I'm able to say, guys, I didn't write this book, but if you like my books, I am pretty sure you're going to love this too. And boy, have I been happy. I have so far, I mean, I can't even pick a favorite. They're all so amazing. We have, just in the first couple of years, 1.5 million copies of these books in print. They have received a total of 28 starred reviews from various literary journals. This is not normal, guys. Most imprints do not get this kind of reception, and it's because we have such fantastic authors doing great stories. We have the Arush Shah series from Rush Chakshi. Man, it is so good. There are going to be 5 in this series. 3 are out already, and these have been optioned for TV and film by Paramount. We have the New York Times bestselling series, The Storm Runner, which deals with Mesoamerican mythology from J.C. Cervantes. It's been optioned for TV film by Apple. another fantastic series. We have the New York Times bestseller Dragon Pearl by science fiction writer Yoon Ha Lee, recently won the Locus Award. And it is such a fantastic mix of Korean mythology and science fiction. It's like nothing you've ever read. We have Carlos Hernandez, who wrote the Sal and Gabby duology, Break the Universe and Fix the Universe, that won the Pura Belpré Award and has been optioned by the Disney Channel. Kwame Mbalia, whose bestseller Tristan Strong has won the Coretta Scott King honor. It's been optioned by Disney. It is, I mean, what can I say? It's West African mythology, African-American mythology mixed together in the modern day, the most sympathetic character you can ever possibly want to meet, and Gum Baby. Wow, Gum Baby alone is worth the price of admission. We have Rebecca Rowanhorse's Race to the Sun, which is about Diné, also called Navajo Sacred Stories. And it is amazing. It's been optioned by Netflix. We also have Taylor K. Mejia's Paula Santiago series, The River of Tears, a retelling of the La Llorona folktale from Mexico, something that as a Texas boy, I grew up with when I was a kid. Scary stuff. But it's not just a horror story. It's also a lot more than that. It's fantastic. And in fact, great news for Tristan Strong fans. This week, as of October 6th, Tristan Strong Destroys the World is out. This has been getting so much buzz, just like the first book. So many starter reviews, so many fans have been waiting for this. And I can tell you, the sequel does not disappoint. Kwame Mbalia has knocked it out of the park again. Coming in January of 21, I am so excited about this City of the Plague God by Sarwat Chadha. I have been a fan of Sarwat's for years, ever since his Ash Mystery series. He is such a great writer. He really gets that mix of humor and action that you have to have for these middle grade books. And this is his take on Mesopotamian mythology, quite possibly the coolest mythology ever. Ishtar and the gods of Sumer and Babylon. Oh my gosh, it's fantastic stuff. Now, it also features the first Muslim American protagonist that we've had in the Riordan Presents imprint, and that is really exciting and really important. City of the Plague God. Now, that may sound like an interesting title to you, given what the world has been dealing with for the last year with COVID-19. When this was written and when it was titled and when we did the cover and we announced everything, this was before anyone had really heard of COVID-19. We had no idea that we were going to be living through basically a modern version of the plague. We thought about that after, obviously the world changed, and we said, I mean, is this still okay to do a book about this? But we thought about it and said, I mean, it's kind of more relevant than ever. I mean, what this tells us is people have been dealing with plagues and figuring out how to cope around pandemics as long as there have been people for thousands of years. And really, the Mesopotamians knew all about this because they had a god of plagues. So in a way, this is a really cool way to look at how much has changed since ancient times and how much hasn't changed. And Sarwat does a fantastic job bringing mythology and making it very, very relevant to what we're all dealing with these days. Also on the horizon, I think this has to be my favorite Arush Shah cover yet. Arush Shah and the City of Gold. Isn't that awesome? I love it. It's coming out April 6th. Rosh has done such a great job. She was the first author that we published under the imprint, and she really set a very high standard for the books that came after. A standard I think that all of the other authors have also met, and just they've all been fantastic, but she was really our trailblazer. Arush Shah and the City of Gold coming April 6th. I personally cannot wait. Oh my gosh, this book. Gracie Kim, who lives in New Zealand, I don't know how she pulled this off, but she has written a book about Korean witches, clans of Korean witches that live in modern day Los Angeles. The Last Fallen Star. I'm not even sure how to describe it other than to say it's so original that I read it and I said, why has no one thought of this before? This is such a cool idea. The characters are so grounded and so real and so sympathetic. The magic is fantastic. It pulls you right in. And did I mention the food? Oh, whoa, I really want to go to some of these Korean restaurants that the characters visit in LA. I hope some of them at least actually exist, because this book will make you so hungry. And Paolo Santiago is going to be back with the sequel, Forest of Nightmares. Oh my gosh, I can't wait. Taylor is just amazing. She's just nails this character. Paola is just like, you want to be Paola's friend. She's just such a great character. And I cannot wait to see what adventure she's getting into in the Forest of Nightmares. And coming September 7th, this is a pretty special book too, Pahua and the Soul Stealer by Lori M. Lee. This one is based on Hmong mythology, which I have to admit, I really don't know much about and didn't know anything until I was introduced to this book. The main character here can see spirits, and she has to find a way to save her brother, who has been taken by mythological forces. It's a great adventure about a mythology that, if you're like me, you may have never really heard of before, but is so rich and so full. Plus, the book has a talking cat. So really, I'm already sold right there. And this, let me tell you, we're doing our first Rick Riordan Presents Anthology of Stories. It's coming out next year, September 28th. And the writers of the imprint have volunteered to write stories about heroes. That's the theme. So each person is writing a new story that'll be part of this. So if you like these authors, but you haven't read enough of them, here under one book, you'll get to read all of them. And I will be contributing a story too. That is my very first look at how I'm tackling Irish mythology. What's it about? Oh, you'll have to wait and see, but I hope you enjoy it. It's really something different and something new for me, and I had a ton of fun writing the story. And here's our special guest now. It's Carlos Hernandez, the author of Sal and Gabby. Yay!
Hello, Rick. I love Tower of Nero. I finished it last night. I was staying up late, and it is such a page turner. It's full of you're glorious. You've written these books for so long. And I was reading you right at the beginning of Percy Jackson, and I was reading them aloud, and just the charm, the wonderfulness of the characters, the humor. Oh my God, there were so many great metaphors. I just loved it.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot, especially coming from an author who I admire so much, who's such a fantastic writer. You are the best. Now, I kind of wanted to ask you about your writing, because I know that you started with stories for an adult audience with the collection that helped me to discover you, the Assimilated Cuban's Guide to Quantum Santeria, which is fabulous. And Sal and Gabby was your first foray writing for middle graders. So I was curious, did you find it harder writing for younger readers?
Yeah, it's such a great question. I took a hint from Madeleine L'Engle, Wrinkle in Time author. Yeah. She was asked the same question, and she was like, I'm writing for kids. I just write, the thing that I'm trying to do to tell the best story, and kids happen to read it great. I'm paraphrasing wildly here, but basically that was the idea. So what I did is I tried to write the best dang sentences in the best dang order that I could, and come up with the story that came out there. And what I love about writing for kids is that they are just as careful, if not more careful, than adult readers because they have the time to be, and they reread like crazy, and so they will just memorize, things and give them back to you. So if you are,
Sure.
going to be a middle grade author, folks out there, just be ready. You will get the toughest questions from the kiddos out there.
Oh, for
Yeah,
sure. Yeah. So
absolutely right. You
follow-up
would know better
question
than
to
I.
that. Oh yeah, totally. You're absolutely right. So follow-up, was there anything that surprised you about being a middle grade author that you weren't expecting?
Yeah, so with middle grade, what I was expecting was maybe some more limitations or stricter guidelines as to what you could and could not write about. And instead, what I found was the exact opposite, that middle grade, I think right now, and no joke, I think because of you, that you've opened up so many avenues for what middle grade is capable. I'd almost want to turn the question back on you, like in terms of like, because you're writing long, pentologies, and you have these big, overarching plots, and I imagine they take a lot of planning. I have to ask you that, but did things change for you as you're putting together something like the Trials of the Apollo?
Yeah, 5 books is, I don't know where I came up with the number 5. I don't know. I just started it with Percy. I said, I think it's going to be about 5 books. And so I sort of did that model and it worked for me. And I've just kept to it for the 2 follow-up series. It is tough and it is a lot of planning. I try to be kind of, well, you and I have talked about this before. It's sort of a balance between planning and being organic, and then sort of letting it develop as it goes. So there is sort of the general plot. I know kind of where it's going to go, where he's going to be, and how it's going to end. But a lot of the details, book to book, yeah, that doesn't start at the beginning. That kind of happens as I go through.
Right, and you have the additional problem of prophecies. So, like from a writerly perspective, you have prophecies that extend, across books sometimes. So that's got to be, or maybe not. Do you plan your prophecies, or do you just say something and then challenge yourself to find an answer for it?
Well, with the prophecies, I got to admit, I kind of cheat. What I do is I write them when I'm done with the book, and then I go back and I plug them in. So it's like, how does he know the future?
It's great though. I mean, cheating nothing. That's big brain energy going on.
I tell you what, yeah, it usually works out. I mean, sometimes I'm like, what does that line mean? I don't know. I've got to figure out what does it mean. But it's fun.
So here you have your 5-book pentology for Trials of Apollo. Did you know right from the beginning that you were going to try to do 5 books for this one, or did you think, oh, let me try a different voice. Let me try a fallen god story.
I wanted to do a different voice. I really liked the idea of telling a story in Percy's world, but from the point of view of a god, a fallen god. I thought that would be a neat challenge and something a little bit different. 5 books was a lot. I have to admit, I mean, it always is a lot, but I had to really think about it. Okay, do I have enough material to make this work? But, I think I'm happy with the way it came out. But I think Apollo needed 5 books to learn his lesson. He was a little dense at the beginning, so it took him a while to get there.
Yeah, I think your readers are going to feel that way too. And there are so many things that I read that I just love that I'm holding back in my head right now so that I don't spoil anything for. But
yeah, don't do that. Yeah, because
no spoilers. But just there are so many elements of the story that, I mean, they're instantly going to become canon for Rick Riordan lovers and. And I mean, I just cannot wait for people to be exposed to that.
Well,
yeah,
absolutely. I was gonna ask you the same thing about elements that you put in your books, because, and again, no spoilers, but Sal and Gabby, oh my goodness! I mean, there's so many wild and wacky science elements and elements inspired by Cuban folklore, and the whole middle school that you create. Where do you get your ideas? I know you've never heard that question as an author before.
Well, I think ideas are just always flooding into us, right? We always get information from our world. We have the things that we're passionate and interested about. And we have other people who are reading or I mean, I think for you, maybe Becky, and you may have a couple other people who read for you. I have my Claire and a couple other people who read for me who give me good input. And, all of these things become the stew. They can become the broth from which you make this loose and baggy monster, that we call the novel. And so to me, it's like I'm passionate about the future and thinking, like future thinking. I love science fiction and fantasy because they are not just about what is going on right now, but what is possible. And to me, that makes them potentially the most hopeful of genres. You're always thinking, what is possible? Let me run this thought experiment in this novel to see where we can take it. And that opens up the ability to think about the future, which makes the future more possible. So yeah, ideas, I think, are actually kind of the easy part. The hard part is typing, like putting words together in ways that make sense that somehow end up in a plot.
I love that. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So, and while we're thinking about plots, one of the things that I really wanted to ask you, because again, like I'm not giving away any spoilers, but everybody out there, read the glossary at the end. If you're like me, you're going to have a moment where you read the glossary and you're like, oh, he was thinking stuff when he did things. And this definition suddenly clears up a whole thematic element that now I understand in great depth. So I wanted to ask you about Lester's arc. And I also wanted to ask you about sort of like some of the objects that you chose to be objects of power in Trials of Apollo. Like everybody knows about the ukulele. I just want to show you that I have my ukulele, my Apollo ukulele shirt on. But
I love it.
I wanted to ask you about, Lester's arc and about sort of like objects of power in the Trials of Apollo, and how are they relevant to today's readers? Like how are these stories meant to talk about our current situation, our current lives right now?
Interesting. Yeah. Well, Apollo's arc, I mean, is basically about kind of learning not to be a jerk. I mean, to put it, simply, I mean, he thinks he's all that. He thinks, for thousands of years, he's been perfect. He's been great. He's beautiful. He's wonderful. He's talented. Everything comes easily to him. He's always been a god. He doesn't really know any other life. And so when he falls to earth and has to learn how to do things the hard way and how to fail and get up and keep going, that's really kind of a hard thing for him. I think that's a hard thing for a lot of us. I think we all wish we were gods, but then, every day we're reminded, yeah, we're really not. But, I think the thing that was relevant that, of course, I didn't realize at the time was with the pandemic that we're in right now, Apollo being the god of disease and god of healing, that was sort of his thing, that he would punish people by sending plagues. I had no idea we were going to be facing COVID-19, but now a lot of people are asking me, is this Apollo's fault? So I guess I'm glad that I gave him an alibi. No, it couldn't have been his fault. He's on Earth now. He's Lester. Blame some other god. It's not him.
On a quick side note, why the name Papadopoulos? Like, what made you choose that last name?
Papadopoulos is actually, I didn't know this, but the most common Greek surname. And it just rolls off the tongue. It's such a great, fun name, Papadopoulos. It sounds onomatopoeic, but I don't know what for, but I love it. I love names that just sound fun.
It's one of the things I love about your books. It's something I try to do too. I think a lot about how things sound, and like I said, I started out reading the first pentology, like all out loud, and they read like scripts. They're so beautifully written.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Well, we were talking about the difference between Percy and Apollo, and, they're both fun for me, but I kind of wanted to turn that idea around, and you have such fantastic protagonists, the duo of Sal and Gabby. I couldn't pick one. They're both so fantastic. Did you like writing from one perspective more than the other?
So, just to be fair, it's a first person narrative, and Sal, gets the lion's share of voices. So I really had to like Sal's voice. with all of his pitfalls and foibles, to be able to do. So in a way, it's like I had to like Sal. I'm not even sure if it's best or whatever, but I had to like him a heck of a lot to be able to, write 2 books about him in his voice. But like, when characters take the stage, they become my favorite. I don't know if you have this phenomenon, but when I get into, Gabby, going on one of her, patented rants, or American Stepmom, being like, oh, what's happening? Like whenever that character takes the stage, that's my favorite, and you kind of have to, like an actor, go all in on those characters and devote yourself to them to really try to get across what's unique about them. How about you? Like what different pleasures did you get writing, say, like Percy versus Lester versus Magnus? Like what are the different pleasures of writing these different first person narrations?
Yeah, somebody told me years ago, I don't remember who it was, but another author said that it's impossible to write a character that's not at least partly yourself. And that's a little scary, depending on who you're writing. But you do sort of bring out different elements that you can relate to, I guess, in narrators especially. Apollo was just such a jerk, but the pleasurable part there was watching how much he changes. He definitely changes more than any other narrator, I think, and that was interesting. I really enjoyed that. Percy is just a very natural voice for me. I mean, he's got my sarcastic quip. He's partly my son. He's partly me. So that's like Percy's voice is like a comfortable little pair of jeans. I know it so well, and it's just so comfortable that I can get into it immediately. Yeah, I mean, everyone is different, but you try to find that different thing, but that's the touchstone that I can use to use as sort of a point of departure for writing.
And I think the voice is one of the ways in which you hold together these extremely complicated worlds. Like on the surface, I don't think a lot of people realize just how complicated they are. But, because you have this compelling, quippy, natural, relatable first-person character, you get to shove in all of this mythology and all of this history that otherwise might be extremely hard to parse, So here's a question. Is there a mighty encyclopedia, Rick, where you keep all of this information straight so that you have it at the ready when you need it?
No. I wish there was, but there's not an encyclopedia like that. I don't have like a serious Bible or anything like that.
Right.
I do go back and I read the former books. I have a lot of resources. I do check my mythology against all these different books that I have on my shelf. But there's not just one main source. That would be great if there was. No, nothing so easy.
Right. Do you ever go to the fan wikis or anything to help you? Sort of like these people have done all this work.
Sometimes I will check them to see how they remember it. Sometimes those are helpful. Yes. Sometimes they're not. So I have to be careful. Sometimes they take a few liberties, and that's okay. But I do have to let the books be the final judge. So yeah. Well, that's me. But I want before I let you go, I have to know what is next for you on the writing horizon, and how soon can I read it?
So, the next book that I am planning, it has the working title of Fig, and it has to do with the rats of New York City. So rats, you may or may not know, are what's called figmophilic, touch-loving. Fig means touch. And that just means that they are constantly like rubbing against not only themselves and one another, but like against walls and everything they encounter, because that's how they make a map of their world. They basically use their bodies, their eyesight isn't that great, in order to understand their world. So in my world, the language that rats speak is called Fig, and it's basically you're able to shove all of your emotions and feelings into another rat instantly, like the second you rub up against them. So they get like a full picture of like who you are and how you're feeling in this moment. Some humans learn to speak this language as well. And so they become the greatest exterminators in New York by not exterminating a single rat. Instead, they just go down and talk to them. Like, hey, can you leave Little Italy for a while? The people are getting a little overwhelmed. It's like, oh, sure. And so basically the story is of Incendio Matanunca. He is the youngest of this family of exterminators. And there's a problem in the sewers that he's needed to fix. Basically, there's a dragon now in Lower Manhattan, and the rats are terrified. They need the greatest extermination family to take the dragon out of the sewers of Manhattan.
I love that. That is so cool. Matanuka, kill no one, right? Kill nothing.
Exactly, Matanuka, kill no one. They're the no-kill exterminators of New York City.
That's so cool. Oh my gosh, I'm looking forward to that.
All right, so before I let you go, Rick Riordan, I have a challenge for you. Now, those of you who don't know, Rick and I had a competition when the release of Fix the Universe, wherein he would ask me questions about mythology, Greek and Roman mythology, and I would ask him questions about Fix the Universe. He got all my questions right. I got all of his questions wrong. And every time I got a question wrong, I had to shave a piece of my hair off until I was basically looking very coconutty by the end. Well, actually, my razor actually kind of broken, so I was kind of left with a half of. Anyway, I've been seeking revenge ever since. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to challenge you, Rick. What I would like you to do is to reach into a portal in the multiverse. I want you to shove your hand through a hole in the universe.
Okay.
Whatever you pull out, you gotta eat.
Oh man. Oh.
I challenge you.
Oh. Okay. Well, at least you didn't say I had to shave my head. I was waiting for that. Wow. Eat something for the. That could be anything.
That could be anything.
Okay.
You know.
Okay. Fair is fair.
Hoping for like the end of Watchmen, you're just gonna pull out this super squid, but we'll see.
Ooh. Okay. All right. Well, we'll see how it goes. Challenge accepted.
All right. Knew you would.
Well, Carlos Hernandez, author of Sal and Gabby Break the Universe and Fix the Universe, thank you so much for agreeing to be our special guest.
Rick, who needs no introduction, thank you for having me. And thank you for Rick Riordan presents so many great books from own voices, so many different voices that you've introduced to a larger audience. So grateful to you.
Thank you. Keep writing. Well, we're excited to be here today because Carlos has given me a challenge of reaching inside this interdimensional box that he sent me and pulling something out from another universe, just like they do in Sal and Gabby. Unfortunately, whatever I pull out, I'm supposed to eat. So, Speedy, you with me? We're gonna see if we can do this. Hopefully I get something good. Yeah, I know. I don't know what's in there either. Okay, here. Reach down. Oh, geez. Okay, hold on. I got something. I got some, Steve. Hold on. Really? I should have known that with Carlos, I would be pulling out a rubber chicken. What? Do you think that's edible? I don't think that's edible. Well, we're going to give it one more try. We're going to put this on hold because I really prefer not to eat the rubber chicken. Okay, let's try again. Let's go for a different universe here. Okay, I got something else. Hold on, Speedy, I'm gonna pull this one out, okay? It's still sort of, no, wait. These are vegan chicken nuggets. Vegan chicken nuggets or the rubber chicken. That's a tough one. Let's give this one a try. Yeah, I guess they're slightly better than the rubber chicken. Thanks, Carlos.
Why did that guy get such easy trials? Is he favored by Zeus or something? Okay.
All right, hello everyone. I'm Alex. I'm from the bookstore. It's awesome to see how many people are here tonight. Just so you know, you guys sent in about 200 incredible questions, so you might be able to guess. We're not going to get through all of them, but we do have some ready, and we're going to get through as many as we can. So here we go. Question 1. You were already talking about quarantine and about COVID, so we're going to get right to it. Quarantine has changed a lot within your community of readers, with people rereading your books, cosplaying on TikTok, and new readers entering the CHB, CJHV, and Brooklyn House worlds. On the flip, how has quarantine changed your interaction with these worlds, from your writing process to your understanding of your characters?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's really not any way that it hasn't changed most of our lives. For me, I've been really lucky. I'm the first one to say that because I worked from home anyway. So it didn't really change my day-to-day schedule very much. And we've just kind of stayed close to home. I've gotten a lot of reading done and a lot of writing done. So for me personally, it hasn't been really all that different. But I do think that if there's any silver lining to all of this, it's that a lot of people are rediscovering the joys of books. They're reading more, they're spending more family time together, they're reading together. So, I mean, I have to look at it, right, and I think that.
All right. And you're totally right. I've been reading a lot of books that I haven't read since I was probably 9 or 10. And it's been really exciting to rediscover all those stories that were so important to me then.
Yeah, totally.
All right. How has writing for young people affected the way you see and interact with the world around you?
Wow. Well, it's sort of evolved from me being a teacher because I was in the middle school classroom for 15 years before I turned to Percy Jackson. So yes, I've always had kind of a middle grade mentality. I like looking at the world kind of in that cynical, sarcastic way with a quirky sense of humor, saying, "Really, world, this is what you're going to give me?" So I've always had that kind of viewpoint, and I kind of carried that into the books. But I mean, I think there's a lot to learn from children's literature because you look at the world with wonder and humor, and anything is possible. Everything could be exciting. And I think that's a pretty good way of looking at the world, especially when times are hard like they are now.
Yeah, I feel like middle grade is a perfect place for heroes, and that's a perfect age to learn about being one for yourself and other people.
Totally, yeah.
Let's see, third question. Would you ever write books revolving around Artemis like you did with Apollo?
I don't know. I hadn't really ever thought about that. I'm sure there's a story there. I think going forward, probably I'm going to be concentrating mostly on standalone novels, not strictly speaking in Percy's world. I mean, we could do some in Percy's world. I've kind of set it up that I could do that. I'm sure that there's a story about the Hunters of Artemis that I could tell.
Oh, yeah.
And that would have a big Artemis angle to it. It's just sort of at this point, I'm kind of waiting to see what's the next iron in the fire that's going to feel like the next thing I really have to write.
Which leads us to another great question, which is what gives you the ideas for your books?
It can be anything. It can be current events. It can be a myth that I haven't read in a while and I reread it and then I think, oh, wow, okay, I haven't done that one yet, or this is a really great theme. Usually the ideas aren't the problem for me. Usually I have more ideas than I would ever be able to write about in a lifetime. It's really just a question of, okay, which idea do I love so much that I want to spend 6 months to a year living with and writing with every single day? That's the trickier part for me.
That makes sense. So that's ideas. We have a couple questions about setting. And the first one is, Magnus Chase, what gave you the idea to make it take place in Boston?
Right, Meg's family was moving to Boston. This was what, 7 years ago now, and I'd been to Boston before, but my son was just coming into a college, and we kind of wanted to make a family move out of it because we really liked the East Coast. We were just ready for something different. So we came up and loved Boston, and I thought, okay, well, I'm here anyway. I mean, this is a great city. I haven't done anything here before with my writing. So why not have this be the hub of the Norse world? And there is some, precedent to this. I mean, Boston does have kind of this mystique about being kind of, could the Vikings have come down here? Is this maybe the southernmost part of their exploration? Historically speaking, that's probably not true, but we've got the statue of Leif Erikson, and there's always been this kind of tradition of that being maybe as far as the Norse gods have gotten.
And yeah, well, we have attendees from all over the country, and actually people outside of the U.S. as well here tonight. But I think we also have a lot of Boston folks, and I am sure every single person in this audience, like me, has loved reading the Magnus Chase books and recognizing all of the different places that the characters go. So it's just so much fun.
It's a wonderful city.
Sort of relatedly, have you ever been to Greece and Rome?
Funnily enough, yes, I have now. When I was writing the Percy Jackson series, I had never been to either Italy or Greece. So when I got into the Heroes of Olympus, I was pretty much making stuff up, doing research, obviously, but I had never been. It wasn't until, I don't know, maybe the second book in the Heroes of Olympus that I actually got a chance to go and be there and see the Acropolis and go to Rome and see the Colosseum. And it was even more amazing than I thought it would be. So now I'm very lucky. I've gotten to take a lot of trips over there. I especially consider myself lucky because now, of course, we can't travel. So I haven't been able to get there, but I'm dying to get back.
And speaking of getting places, how much location shooting are you hoping that you get to do for the TV show?
Ooh, good question. I don't know. I mean, we're still pretty far away from that. There has been some conversations about how do we shoot it? Do we do it? We actually have access maybe to the rig, which is where The Mandalorian was filmed, which is all in one place. And the way that they do that, I mean, it's incredible. They can just sort of recreate any kind of scene you can. So it could be done that way. It could be done on location, or it could be done as a mix. But that's, who knows? The most important thing right now is that we get the writing correct. We get the scripts nailed, so they absolutely are perfect. And that's, it's going to take a while, but we are making good progress.
It's so exciting. Here's a question. Will you be making a cameo in the Disney Plus adaptation?
We've talked about that. I don't know. Becky, my wife, has some ideas about where I might make a cameo in this series. So who knows?
I want to talk about characters. We have a few great questions about that. So first of all, did you model any characters in your books after people you know?
Yes, the short answer. Early on, especially, for instance, with The Lightning Thief, I mean, we have to kind of go back in time. I was still a middle school teacher full-time, and I was writing this for my son, who was a student at the school where I taught. It was a K-12 school. So I didn't know it was going to be published. I was basing the characters in the book after people in the school. So I would name some of the demigods after actual students of mine, like Charles Beckendorf, Travis and Connor Stoll. These are actual kids that I taught. Nico was the first name of a kid that I taught. So all of these they're not like cut from life exactly the way they were, but they are based on real people. Mrs. Dodds, The evil math teacher who turns into a harpy, she's totally real. She was one of my colleagues. She taught pre-algebra. So, and the kids were all, a little scared of her. So I figured, well, why not? Maybe I'll just turn her into a monster. So then, of course, the book was published and I had to apologize to her, but we're good now.
That's good, though, because now she can point at that every time she meets a reader.
Right.
I think that's a good claim to fame in the end.
Totally.
So we have another question, which says, how did you come up with such diverse characters ranging from unhomed people to Muslim people to LGBTQ people, communities that everyone can relate to?
Well, I hope so. I mean, I'm not perfect about that, but I mean, I really do feel an obligation to my students, honestly. I mean, these are not things that I made up. I mean, this is my classroom. These are the kids I've taught. And I've watched the stuff that they've had to go through. Middle school, it's a tough time no matter who you are. It's not easy. You're figuring out who you are, where you fit in socially, where you fit in with your family, whatever you're going through, whatever your background is, however you identify, it's a tough time. And I didn't want any of my kids feeling like they weren't seen, like they weren't remembered. Because, in my world, I feel like we can all be demigods. So yeah, I just wanted to honor that. There are all kinds of kids in the world and they all deserve to be seen.
And another question that's also about representation and showing everybody in your books is a question that says, I really love and admire Reina, and she was the first character I ever read that was like me, a Puerto Rican Latina. Would you ever consider giving her a book, maybe a prequel of her journey to get to Camp Jupiter?
Another great idea. Reina is absolutely one of my favorite characters too. I love her dearly. That would be a great idea. I don't know. Yes, it's something I've considered. I think if I were to go that route, you would probably see Reina in a Hunters of Artemis novel. I would love to write that book. I can't promise you when that would happen, but as a standalone, one of these days, I would love to do it.
All right, and a couple of reading questions.
Yeah.
What kinds of books did you read when you were in middle school?
Well, I have to be honest, for a long time when I was a kid, I was a reluctant reader, which is why I feel a lot of sympathy for kids that maybe aren't. I get that. So I wanted to write books myself for that reason, that they were really books that could hook you, even if you weren't a voracious reader. For me back then, I started out, honestly, with comic books. I was a big comic book fan, Marvel Comics, DC. I had a collection that my uncles had when they were young. So I had like a lot of the Silver Age comics and Gold Age comics from way back when. I don't know what happened. They would have been hugely valuable now, but that's what I cut my teeth on. I know, right? But I did really get into The Lord of the Rings. That was probably my first sort of gateway book into the world of fantasy that really got me going. The Earthsea trilogy, A Wizard of Earthsea, was another really early one that I just absolutely loved. And of course, mythology. I've always loved the myths.
And that actually leads perfectly into another question that we have, which is, why do you think that it's important for ancient myths to still be taught today?
Well, I think they have a lot to teach us, the ancient myths. I mean, there is a reason why they kept up so long. I mean, they've been with us for thousands of years now. I think that sometimes it's easier to talk about modern, relevant, really personal stuff if you sit from yourself by studying it at a remove. To look at the myths, we can look at Zeus and Hera and Poseidon and look at what they're going through. And in a way, it teaches us what we're going through, but it's not quite as threatening as talking about it in a personal sense. Fantasy makes it easier to deal with some of the really hard human conditions. Like, what does love mean? And what works out when love is involved and what doesn't work out? Is revenge ever okay? What does family mean? What do you owe your parents? And how much do your parents affect who you become away from that heritage? These are all questions that have been with us forever. And the myths still have a lot to tell us about that.
I don't know if you'd agree, but I also think something that's cool about mythology is that when it's dealing with questions like that, it makes the action around those questions really big. So it's kind of like the story is giving you an action that feels as big as your feelings about the question. And
Oh,
that's a
that's
kind of,
really well said. I
yeah.
love, yeah, totally, Alex. I agree with you. I think that's really well said. Yeah.
We do have a couple more questions about nitty gritty details and indeed mythology. I
Go
really
ahead.
like this one. I realize that this isn't specifically about Apollo, but here's the question. In Ship of the Dead, it's revealed that Mallory was killed
Yes.
attempting to disarm a car bomb with
Yeah.
knives given to her by her mother, Frigga, who knew that she would die in the process. In popular culture and some of the original myths, Frigga is shown as being a very good and devoted mother. So, what prompted the choice to portray her in this less common and more cold and Hera-like way?
Mm. It's been a while since I wrote that book. I have to think about that. I think that that's true. Frigg slash Frigga is often seen as a very maternal figure. But as with any god or goddess, I mean, there is always a sense of being kind of separate from the mortal situation. And I think that especially if you're the mortal, especially if you're the demigod, it's really difficult to sort of understand how your parent decides to be the
Mm-hmm.
way they are. You're always going to feel separate from your parents in a way when your parent is a god. Uh, I mean, how do you how do you get past that? That's such a huge thing. So I think that may be part of the reason why the way that they operate is not always clear, and it's
Mm-hmm.
not always warm and fuzzy. It's sometimes cosmic, and a lot of it has to do with fate. And you just sort of have to decide. Maybe I just have to trust that they see something in the future. She was a goddess of prophecy, and she did see the future. So maybe she sees something and knows this is important. We hope, anyway.
All right, I think we have a time for a few more. So,
Sure.
a couple of fun ones. What's your favorite comfort meal and dessert? Actually, the
Okay.
most challenging question of all.
No, that's actually really easy. Comfort food for me. I was raised in South Texas. I grew up in San Antonio, so Tex-Mex food, absolutely.
Mm.
Enchiladas, chalupas, tacos, whatever. That's my comfort food. Love it. And dessert, I got to say ice cream. I love a good gelato cone. That's the best thing
Mm.
in the world to me.
And another one, do you or have you played any video games? And if so, what kinds?
Yeah, I do. I mean, my family and I, on occasion, will sit down and do like real retro stuff like Mario Party. We'll just sit, and my kids are like in college now, but they still love coming over, and we'll just play video games like that. Um, I have an Animal Crossing account. I played it a lot, like a lot of people did in the spring, and that was fun. Back in the day, I used to play like World of Warcraft and City of Heroes and some of the massive MMORPG games. Yeah, I played a lot of video games. I mean, I'm old, obviously, so a lot of the games I've played are from way back when. But I like video games.
Um, all right. As someone who started reading your books in second grade and is still enjoying them in college, how does it make you feel that you've had such a big impact on kids' entire lives? Because you've been publishing these for 15 years now, right?
Oh, don't
Before, I think.
remind me. I know. I feel. I
I'm so
know.
sorry.
Like, no, it's totally fine. It's like, I'm just waiting, like, hey, I used to read you when I was a kid, and,
Oh.
now I'm a grandparent. I'm like, okay, that's fine. No, it's great. And, the thing I really appreciate and cherish is that fans who started 15 years ago are still with me. They are kids' books, but that's just because I'm a middle school teacher and that's kind of where my mind is, and I kind of see them that way. But that doesn't mean you can't read them. I have lots of fans that are 80 years old and fans that are 8 years old. And that's a beautiful thing. I love it that people can share the books with other generations and
Mm-hmm.
friends that, and younger siblings. It's a fantastic feeling. It is wonderful. And to see the community that has grown up around the books, and really they're not mine anymore. The books don't belong to me. They belong to the fans. They belong to the readers, and it has really taken on a life of its own, and it's wonderful.
Well, I think you can always grow into books, but you don't need to grow out of them.
There you go. Excellent. Yes.
And I think that actually brings us to time for this evening. Thank you so much for your questions, and thank you so much, Rick, for this incredible event.
Oh, thank you guys. It's been a real pleasure. And thanks everybody for joining us.
Thank you. Bye.